I still remember that morning clearly. August 17th, 2025. It feels as if it happened only a few minutes ago. It was a typical Sunday in Laguna Beach, the place I chose as my home after my divorce 8 years earlier. I woke up at 6 in the morning. I brewed a strong cup of French-style black coffee. I carried it out to the wooden deck behind the house. I sat down in my favorite rattan chair and let the early sunlight gently touch my face. The Pacific Ocean stretched out before my eyes. The waves moved in steady rhythm like a soft lullaby. I spread out my yoga mat. I took deep breaths. I stretched slowly with each breath. Then I sat down and continued reading the romantic novel I had not finished yet. It was a gentle story about a woman who rediscovered herself in her early 60s. Those were the moments I treasured the most. No one disturbed me. No schedule. Only me, the ocean, and the freedom I had fought so hard to gain. Then a car door slammed. The sound was so loud that it startled me. My coffee cup almost slipped from my hand. I looked up through the sliding glass door. A silver sport utility vehicle had stopped right at the entrance. Emily stepped out of it. She is my only daughter, 32 years old. Her blonde hair was tied high and she was wearing an oversized sweater that made her look as if she had just walked out of a fashion magazine. Behind her was a man I had never seen before. He was tall. His suit was perfectly tailored. His smile was confident, almost too perfect. 3 enormous suitcases rolled behind them. It looked as if they were planning to stay for a month. Emily pushed the front door open without knocking. She tossed the spare key onto the kitchen counter. The metal sound echoed through the quiet house. "Mother," she called out loudly. Her voice was full of energy, as if nothing about this was unusual. "We are here." I stood up. The coffee in my hand had already grown cold. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Emily, and—" She turned and pulled the man closer. "This is Nathan Reed, my new husband. Nathan, this is my mother, Lauren Smith." She emphasized the words, "my husband," the way people do when they want to announce a big decision without asking anyone for approval. Nathan stepped forward and shook my hand firmly. His smile was bright, showing perfectly white teeth. "Mrs. Smith, it is an honor to meet you. Emily talks about this house all the time. It is wonderful. The location, the ocean view, modern style but still warm and welcoming." His eyes moved slowly across the living room, across the large window facing the Pacific Ocean. Then they stopped at the bookshelf and the few paintings I had painted myself. I was not sure if that was a sincere compliment or if he was quietly estimating the value of the property. Before I could respond, Emily spoke again. Her tone sounded more like an order than a request. "Mother, tomorrow morning at 5, I hope breakfast will be ready. Nathan wakes up very early. He likes everything to be perfect. Strong coffee with no sugar, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit. You still wake up early anyway, so I am sure it will not be a problem." I stood there in silence. 5 in the morning, breakfast, for a man I had just met for the first time. I looked at Emily, the daughter I once held in my arms, the child I stayed awake all night to care for when she was sick, the girl I felt so proud of when she graduated from college. Now she stood there as if this house belonged to her, and I was only the servant. 3 weeks earlier, on July 27th, we had argued on the phone. I told her that marrying someone she had known for only 5 months was too rushed. I said she should take more time to truly understand him. She hung up. She told me not to interfere in her life anymore. And now she was here, with a new husband, 3 suitcases, and a list of expectations as if I were a housekeeper she had hired. I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. "This is quite a surprise, Emily. I was not informed about any of this." She shrugged and pulled her suitcase toward the guest stairs. "We are on our honeymoon, Mom. Hotels feel cold. They have no sense of family. Your house is quiet, private, and beautiful. It is perfect." Nathan stood near the door. His polite smile never left his face, but his eyes kept moving, from the leather sofa to the stone fireplace and then to the large window facing the ocean. I knew that look. I had seen it before in real estate agents when they stepped into a client's home. It was the look of someone calculating value. and I knew that my peaceful morning had just officially come to an end. I still feel a sharp ache in my chest when I remember the moment Emily threw the keys onto the kitchen counter. In only a few minutes, my peaceful home, the place where I had spent 8 years rebuilding my life after my divorce, suddenly became an unexpected destination for a newly married couple. I stood there. My hand was still holding a cup of coffee that had already grown cold. I looked at my daughter and the new husband I had never met before. I wondered if this was some strange dream or if reality was slowly slipping out of my hands. They did not ask for permission. They simply stayed. Emily pulled her suitcase upstairs, her smile bright and carefree. "Mom, we will stay here only a few days. Think of it as a private honeymoon. Hotels are boring. They do not have the warm family feeling like this place." Nathan nodded in agreement. His polite smile remained steady. "That is true, Mrs. Smith. Your house is truly a gem. A beachfront home in Laguna Beach like this. A wide-open view of the Pacific Ocean. Such peaceful air. It is very rare." He spoke as if he were praising a property on the real estate market, not the home I had struggled so hard to maintain. I reluctantly led them to the guest room. While I changed the bed sheets and moved the boxes of Christmas decorations that I had forgotten on the mattress since last year, I could hear Nathan walking back and forth downstairs. His leather shoes tapped rhythmically on the wooden floor. He stopped in front of the large window and looked out toward the ocean. Then he turned to me and asked with curiosity in his voice, "Mrs. Smith, this house must be worth a lot, right? Coastal California is very hot right now. Property prices are rising extremely fast." "When did you buy this place?" I answered briefly. 8 years ago, after my divorce." He nodded slowly. His eyes moved across the room as if calculating, from the genuine leather sofa to the stone fireplace, and then toward the balcony that looked down over the white sand beach. I knew that look. It was the look of someone estimating value, not admiration, but calculation of profit. I tried to stay calm. I told myself that this was only a honeymoon. They would leave soon. But the second day passed. Then the third day. They were still there. Emily used my bathroom as if it were her own. Cosmetics covered the sink. Nathan turned the kitchen dining table into a temporary office. He opened his laptop and read financial news. Sometimes he made a quiet sound of satisfaction when the market went up. They cooked dinner using the ingredients in my refrigerator. They drank the wine I had saved for quiet evenings when I read alone. Every time I tried to ask how long they planned to stay, Emily would smile brightly. "Mom, do not worry. We love staying here. It is quiet, it is private, and you take care of everything." What could be better than that? On the afternoon of the third day, Maggie came by as she usually did. She has been my closest friend for 30 years. She brought a box of freshly baked chocolate cookies. Her silver hair was tied neatly behind her head. Her smile was warm like autumn sunlight. Maggie stepped into the kitchen and saw Emily sitting on my sofa. Her legs were resting on the coffee table while she scrolled on her phone. I introduced Nathan and Maggie shook his hand politely. But when Emily stood up to pour more coffee, she casually said something that made the room feel colder. "My mother has lived alone for too long. She needs someone to help her. This house is so big. Taking care of it alone must be exhausting for her." Maggie glanced at me. There was a brief look of concern in her eyes. She did not respond immediately. She simply smiled gently and turned toward me. "Lauren, how about we take a walk along the beach later? The weather is beautiful today." When I walked Maggie to the door, she held my hand. Her voice was soft but serious. "Be careful, my friend. If something feels wrong, call me immediately. Do not let anyone disturb your peace." I nodded. But inside my heart, a strange feeling of unease had already begun to grow. Maggie had never said something like that without a reason. That night, after Emily and Nathan went upstairs, I sat alone on the deck. I listened to the sound of the waves. I watched the moonlight reflecting across the ocean. This house is everything I have. It is the place where I learned how to live for myself again after many years of sacrificing for my family. I once believed that old age would be a time to enjoy life, a time for freedom. But now I was beginning to realize something. That freedom was slowly being invaded, piece by piece, by my own daughter, and by the man she called her husband. And I knew one thing clearly. If I did nothing, everything would only become worse. That Monday evening, August 18th, 2025, the atmosphere inside my house felt completely different. Emily and Nathan were still staying there as if they had never planned to leave. I prepared a simple dinner, herb roasted chicken, a fresh vegetable salad from the local farmer's market, and a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon that I had saved since my birthday last year. I thought the meal might make things feel lighter, but I was wrong. While I was setting the table, Emily casually reached for the wine bottle on the high shelf. It was a bottle I usually opened only for special occasions. She poured a full glass for herself and for Nathan without asking a single word. Then she dropped down onto the sofa as if the house belonged to her. Nathan sat across from her. He still looked polite and composed, but now his eyes hid his calculation less carefully. I sat down and tried to keep a smile on my face. Yet inside me, a quiet sense of unease had already begun to grow. Emily took a sip of wine. Then she placed the glass down and looked at me. Her expression carried a strange mix of pity and confidence. "Mom," she said softly but sharply, "I think it is time for you to seriously reconsider where you live." I froze. My hand holding the fork stopped in the air. "What do you mean?" she sighed, as if she were explaining something obvious. "You live here alone, in such a large house, and right here in Laguna Beach by the ocean. You are 68 years old now. What if something happens to you? What if you fall in the bathroom, or have a stroke, or simply need help and no one knows? This house is beautiful, but it is too big, too isolated. You deserve to live somewhere more comfortable and more secure." Nathan nodded immediately. His voice sounded calm and warm, full of apparent concern. "Mrs. Smith, I completely agree with Emily. I have worked in real estate for many years, and I can see it very clearly. Coastal homes like this are rising in value very fast. If you sell now, this is the golden moment. You could easily receive double the price you paid when you bought it. After that, you could move into a beautiful apartment near the city center, with 24-hour security, full services, and no worries about maintenance or safety. The remaining money could be invested. I could help you manage it. A safe portfolio, stable returns. You would live comfortably, without pressure, and still maintain a high-quality lifestyle." I sat silently. I listened to every word they said, yet a cold feeling slowly ran down my spine. They spoke as if they were helping me, as if this were kindness, as if it were the concern of a daughter and a son-in-law. But behind those elegant words, I could clearly hear the real intention. They wanted me to sell this house, the house I had protected with all my strength after my divorce, so that they, or more precisely Nathan, could control the money. I looked at Emily, the daughter I once stayed awake all night caring for when she had a high fever, the daughter I proudly watched walk across the stage at her graduation, the daughter I once believed would stand beside me when I grew old. Now she sat there with my wine glass in her hand, telling me that I was too old and too lonely to live in my own home. Then I looked at Nathan, the man with the perfect smile, sharp eyes, and a smooth voice that sounded like he was selling a product. I knew that look. I had seen it before in real estate agents when they stepped into a client's house. It was the look of someone calculating profit, not family. I did not answer immediately. I simply nodded and gave a faint smile. I will think about it. But inside my mind, everything had already begun to shift. Later, when they went upstairs, I quietly walked back to the dining table. Nathan had forgotten a stack of papers, bills, business cards from his company, a few printed draft contracts. I took out my phone. I turned on the flashlight. I quickly took photos of every page. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the anger rising in my chest. I am not someone who can be easily intimidated. I am 68 years old. I have survived a divorce. I rebuilt my life alone at an age when many people believe it is time to rest. This house is not only a property, it is the symbol of my freedom, the symbol of my right to live the way I choose. And now my own daughter, the person I loved most, was standing beside the man who wanted to take it away. I put my phone away. I turned off the kitchen light. Then I sat down on the sofa and looked out into the darkness of the Pacific Ocean. The waves continued their steady rhythm. But inside my heart, a storm had already begun to form. I knew I could not allow things to continue like this. Not because of the money, not because of the house, but because of my dignity, because of my right to live the final years of my life without anyone deciding for me. And at that moment I made a decision. I would find out who Nathan Reed truly was, because if this was their honeymoon, then it would also be the beginning of a battle they never expected. On Wednesday morning, August 20th, 2025, I woke up at 4 a.m, not because I wanted to, but because Emily had left me no other choice. The alarm clock rang softly in my bedroom. It was a familiar sound, yet this time it made my heart beat faster than usual. I lay still for a moment. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness and listened to the distant sound of the Pacific Ocean. I asked myself a quiet question. Is this still my house, or has it now become a free hotel where I have been turned into a servant for my own daughter and the new husband I have never trusted? I quietly walked down to the kitchen. I turned on the small light and began preparing breakfast. Emily had made it very clear the night before. Her tone sounded more like an order than a request. Mom, tomorrow morning at 5, the breakfast must be ready. Nathan wakes up very early. He likes everything to be perfect. Strong coffee with no sugar, eggs Benedict with rich hollandaise sauce, and some fresh fruit. You always wake up early anyway, so it should not be a problem. She said it as if it were obvious, as if I had been born to serve them. I stood by the stove. My hands trembled slightly as I cracked the eggs. I remembered my old mornings, coffee alone, yoga on the deck, reading a book under the gentle light of early sunshine. Those were the moments I cherished most at 68 years old, when I had finally begun living for myself. Now I was standing here preparing breakfast for a man I had met only a few days ago, only because my daughter believed that this was a mother's duty. While I was whisking the hollandaise sauce, Nathan came downstairs. He was already dressed in a neatly pressed white shirt. His hair was carefully combed, as if he were preparing for an important workday. He sat at the kitchen counter, exactly where I usually sat to read the morning newspaper. He opened his laptop and began reading financial news. The quiet tapping of the keyboard filled the kitchen. Every now and then he made a satisfied sound when the market numbers looked good. He treated my house like his personal office, as if I were the person responsible for coffee and breakfast service. There was no thank you, no polite question, only a short nod when I placed a cup of strong coffee in front of him. Emily appeared a few minutes later. She was still wearing her sleep clothes. Her hair was messy. She held her phone and scrolled through the screen. She looked at me. Then she looked at Nathan, eating comfortably. Then she spoke in a satisfied voice. "See, Mom, I told you, you did a great job. Nathan really likes this. Starting the day the right way. Good nutrition. No distractions." Nathan looked up and smiled at me. "Thank you, Mrs. Smith. You truly have talent in the kitchen. This is a perfect breakfast." I forced a small smile, but inside me anger was quietly boiling. Perfect for whom? For him, the man sitting there like the owner of the house. Or for me, the woman who had to wake up at 4 a.m. to serve them? I felt deeply insulted, not only because of the work, but because of the disrespect. They did not see me as an independent woman who had taught school for decades. They did not see a woman who had survived divorce and rebuilt her life. To them, I was only mother, someone who must obey, someone who must sacrifice, someone who must please them. Just then, Carla arrived. She is the cleaning woman I hire by the hour twice each week. She entered through the back door as usual, holding her broom and cleaning cloth. Carla saw me standing by the stove wearing an apron. She saw Nathan sitting at the counter like a boss. She heard Emily say casually, "Mom, remember to make another pot of coffee later. Nathan has a call at 7. Carla stopped for a moment. Her eyes showed surprise. Then that expression slowly turned into quiet sympathy. She gently shook her head and said nothing. But I knew she understood. Carla had told me many stories about the homes where she worked, homes where the housekeepers were treated like invisible people. Now she was looking at me, the homeowner, being treated exactly the same way by my own daughter. Carla began cleaning the floor. Every now and then she glanced at me with concern. When she walked past me, she whispered so softly that only I could hear, Mrs. Lauren, if you need anything, just tell me. I will be here until noon. I nodded. A small feeling of warmth appeared inside my chest, even through the anger. At least someone still saw me, truly saw me, not as a servant, but as a human being. I turned back and looked at Nathan finishing the last bite of his Eggs Benedict. He smiled and said, "Wonderful." Emily laughed with satisfaction, as if everything were unfolding exactly as planned. But inside my mind, a decision had already formed. Clear, sharp, like the edge of a knife. I would not stay silent anymore. They might believe I was an obedient mother ready to serve, but they had made a serious mistake. I have lived long enough to know something very important. Independence is not something that can be taken away easily. And if they want to turn this house into a battlefield, then I will fight. In my own way. Carefully, quietly, and without mercy. When Carla left at noon, I sat alone on the deck and looked out at the ocean. The waves still moved in their steady rhythm. But inside my heart, a storm had truly begun. I already knew my next step. I would find out who Nathan Reed truly was. And I would not allow them to take away what I had spent my whole life protecting. Not the house, but myself. That afternoon, August 20th, 2025, after Carla left and Emily and Nathan went upstairs for their afternoon rest, I finally had space to breathe. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same place where Nathan had sat earlier, like the owner of the house. I opened my laptop. My hands were still trembling slightly from the anger of the morning. I am not the type of person who easily lets things go. At 68 years old, I have learned something important. Silence is not always golden. Sometimes silence only allows others to believe they have already won, and I had no intention of letting Nathan Reed or Emily believe that they could step into my life and take away what I had spent my entire life protecting. I began with a simple search. Nathan Reed Real Estate Investment. The results appeared quickly. His company website looked very professional. Reed Property Solutions. A polished logo. Photographs of beautiful coastal homes in California. And a slogan that said, "Optimize your property for the future." But when I looked deeper, things began to change. The company listed only one public project, a small apartment complex in Riverside. According to public records from the state of California, that project was currently under bank foreclosure because of heavy debt. I continued searching. Then I found an old article from the newspaper Riverside Press Enterprise dated March 12, 2023. The headline spoke about several elderly homeowners who claimed they had been pressured into selling property below market value to a local investment company. The company mentioned in the article was Reed Property Solutions. The article described a 74-year-old woman who had signed a property management agreement with Nathan. Only a few months later, she lost her home because the promised monthly payments never arrived. My heart began to beat faster. I continued searching. I added new words, Nathan Reed wife, and then I found her. Karen Mitchell, 58 years old, the former owner of a catering company in San Diego. An article from 2022 reported that Karen's company had been sold quickly just before her divorce from Nathan was finalized. A small blog from a local women business association even contained a comment written by Karen herself. She wrote, "I trusted him with everything. My company, my finances, my entire life. In the end, everything became only a tool for him to reach his goal." I sat there in silence. I stared at the screen while a tight feeling formed in my chest. Nathan was not simply the impulsive new husband of my daughter. He was a professional, a predator who targeted older people with property, especially women who lived alone, and now his next target was me. And the beachfront house in Laguna Beach that I had worked so hard to protect. I needed to speak with Karen. I found her phone number through the old website of her company, which had already closed. Then I called. The phone rang 3 times. A woman answered. Her voice was warm but tired. Hello. My name is Lauren Smith. I am having trouble with Nathan Reed. He just married my daughter, and I believe he is targeting my house." There was silence for a moment. Then Karen sighed. Her voice trembled slightly, but it was steady. "Mrs. Smith, I know exactly what you are going through. Nathan is not a beginner. He is charming. He is intelligent, and he knows how to make people believe that he is helping them. With me, he convinced me to use my catering company as collateral for what he called a guaranteed investment. When the investment failed because it was designed to fail, I lost everything. He took the work of my entire life. Then he left me after the divorce. If your daughter is with him, warn her immediately. And if he is targeting your house, do not sign any documents. Record every conversation. Keep every piece of evidence. Contact a lawyer or the state office that protects elderly citizens. You are not the first person. And if he is not stopped, you will not be the last. I quickly wrote down everything she said. Inside me, fear and anger mixed together. Before ending the call, Karen said something that made my body feel cold. He always has a backup plan. If you resist him, he will not hesitate to silence you. Be careful, Mrs. Smith. And if you need help, call me any time. I ended the call. My hand was still tightly holding the phone. At that moment, I heard footsteps on the staircase. Nathan walked downstairs. He was still wearing his white shirt. He held a glass of water in his hand. He saw me sitting in front of my laptop. The screen was still open to the article about his failed project. His eyes narrowed slightly, but his smile did not change. "What are you doing, Mrs. Smith?" he asked. His voice sounded gentle, but there was curiosity inside it. I quickly switched to another page, a cooking website that explained how to make perfect eggs Benedict. Then I looked up and smiled. "Oh, I am just searching for new recipes. I want to cook something special for dinner tonight." "What would you like, Nathan?" He laughed softly and nodded. "You are very thoughtful. I will enjoy anything you make." He turned and walked away, but I noticed the final glance he gave toward my laptop screen. He had seen it, and I knew something very clearly. From that moment forward, the game had officially begun. I closed the laptop and walked out to the deck. The ocean wind touched my face. The waves continued their steady rhythm, but inside my mind a plan had already formed. I would not allow Nathan Reed to take this house. I would not allow him to take my freedom, and I would not allow him to take away my trust in myself. I would learn more, I would collect evidence, and if necessary, I would turn his trap into a trap for him. Because at 68 years old, I am no longer someone who can be easily frightened. My name is Lauren Smith, and I will protect what belongs to me, no matter the cost. The next morning, August 21st, 2025, the alarm clock rang at 4 a.m. The sound was small but sharp. It felt like a reminder that I had chosen a path from which there was no turning back. I lay still in the darkness of my bedroom. I listened to the steady rhythm of the Pacific Ocean outside. For a moment I wondered if I had gone too far, but then I remembered Emily's eyes when she ordered me to prepare breakfast for Nathan. I remembered the calculating smile on his face while he sat at my kitchen counter as if it were his right. No, I had not gone too far. I was simply protecting myself. That is something every American is taught from childhood. Stand up when someone tries to cross your boundaries. I walked quietly down to the kitchen. I turned on the small light and began preparing breakfast. First, the coffee. I ground the dark roasted beans fresh exactly the way Nathan liked it. No sugar, no milk, only a strong, bitter taste. Then I placed the cup on the counter and let the rich aroma fill the room. Next came eggs Benedict. I prepared the hollandaise sauce carefully. Melted butter, smooth egg yolks, a little fresh lemon juice. The sauce became thick and silky. I arranged the plate with care. Soft poached eggs, crisp toasted bread, a few slices of tomato and fresh strawberries. Everything looked elegant and perfect, like a breakfast served in a fine restaurant. At 4:47 in the morning, I heard footsteps upstairs. Nathan came down exactly on time like a machine following its schedule. He was wearing an expensive silk robe. His hair was neatly combed. He looked slightly surprised when he saw the table already prepared. "Mrs. Smith, you really did it," he said with a satisfied smile. I placed the plate in front of him and poured coffee into a clean white porcelain cup. "I always keep my promises," I replied softly. Nathan sat down. He cut the first piece of egg and tasted it slowly. Then he nodded with approval. "Wonderful. You truly have talent in the kitchen. A breakfast like this reminds me of my late grandmother. She always prepared everything carefully, just like you. He laughed lightly. His eyes showed quiet pride, as if that compliment were a great reward for me. I smiled politely, but inside I felt only a cold sense of contempt. "Grandmother, I am 68 years old." And he compared me to his late grandmother as if I existed only to serve him. 45 minutes later, everything began to change. First, Nathan made a small, uncomfortable sound. He placed his fork down and held his stomach. His face looked slightly pale. "Maybe I ate too quickly," he said, trying to smile. But only a few minutes later, he suddenly stood up and hurried upstairs faster than I had ever seen him move. The bathroom door slammed. Then it opened. Then it closed again. A second time. A third time. A fourth time. He ran up and down the stairs like an injured animal. His face became pale. Sweat covered his forehead. His voice sounded panicked when he called for Emily. "Emily, call a doctor. Something is not right." Emily ran downstairs with wide, frightened eyes. "Nathan, what is wrong with you? You never get sick." She turned to me, her voice shaking. "Mom, do you have any medicine for stomach problems?" I pretended to worry. I opened the medicine cabinet and handed her a bottle of antacid tablets. "This may help for now," I said gently. Nathan swallowed several tablets quickly. Then he rushed upstairs again. For the rest of the morning, my house was no longer peaceful. The place that once felt like a quiet retreat now echoed with hurried footsteps and the constant sound of the bathroom door opening and closing. Emily walked back and forth in the kitchen, her face pale. She called my family doctor, Dr. Elena Torres. I stood by the window and looked out at the ocean. I pretended to feel worried, but inside I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Not because I wanted to harm anyone, but because for the first time in many days I felt that I had regained control. Dr. Torres called back after 20 minutes. Her voice sounded serious through the speaker. "Mrs. Smith, I have listened to the symptoms. This is very likely severe food poisoning. Vomiting, continuous diarrhea, and rapid dehydration. He needs to go to the emergency room immediately for fluids and observation. It is not life-threatening, but it must be treated quickly." Emily panicked and helped Nathan downstairs. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. His face was hollow. His eyes were tired. His hands trembled while he held his stomach. When they reached the door, Nathan turned and looked at me. His voice was weak. "Mrs. Smith, I am sorry for causing trouble. Maybe I ate something bad yesterday." I nodded, my voice full of concern. "It is all right. I hope you feel better soon." But when the door closed and their car drove quickly toward the medical center, I finally allowed myself to breathe deeply. Emily had looked at me with a brief expression of suspicion, only for a moment, but it was enough for me to know that she had begun to wonder. She was not ready to think too deeply yet. She was not ready to face the truth that her new husband might not be the good man she believed he was. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. I returned to the kitchen. I cleaned the remaining dishes and washed the coffee cup. Then I sat down in my chair and looked out at the ocean again. The waves still moved in their steady rhythm. But today they sounded stronger, almost as if they were whispering, "You did it." I did not feel regret. This was not blind revenge. It was simply a reminder that I am not someone who can be easily used. And if Nathan believed he could enter my life without consequences, he had made a serious mistake. That special breakfast this morning was only the first step, and I knew that what was coming next would be far more intense. The following translation keeps the original meaning, emotional tone, and smooth pacing for English voice AI narration with clear sentence breaks and simple pronunciation flow for TTS. After Nathan and Emily left for the medical center, my house suddenly became quiet again. But it was no longer the peaceful silence it once was. The waves of the Pacific Ocean were still rolling steadily outside, yet inside my heart something stronger was moving. It felt as if the ocean itself was whispering to me, "You have already begun. Do not stop now." I cleaned the kitchen. I washed the plates that still carried the scent of hollandaise sauce. Then I sat down on the sofa holding a cup of hot tea in my hands. I did not regret what had just happened. It was not blind revenge. It was simply my way of reminding them that I was not someone who could be easily used. And if Nathan believed he could walk into my life without paying a price, then he was terribly mistaken. That afternoon, Emily called from the hospital. Her voice trembled. It carried both worry and confusion. "Mom, the doctor says Nathan has severe food poisoning. He needs an intravenous drip and several days of rest. We will come back to your house later this afternoon." I answered gently but firmly. "I understand. I will prepare the room for both of you. Come home soon." When the call ended, I knew the moment had arrived. Nathan was weakened. Emily was confused and frightened. This was exactly the time when I needed to act, not with emotion but with careful calculation. When they returned home in the late afternoon, Nathan looked like a shadow of himself. His face was pale and hollow. His eyes were sunken. He walked slowly, still holding his stomach. Emily helped him into the living room. Then she sat beside me and spoke softly but with strong persuasion. "Mom, I really think you should seriously consider selling the house. Look at Nathan like this. If you were living here alone and something happened to you, who would take care of you? This house is too large. And you are getting older. You could sell it. Use the money to buy a smaller apartment near the city center. There would be security. There would even be nurses available if needed. Nathan's company could also help you invest the remaining money. It would be safe, and the returns would be stable. You would live much more comfortably." Nathan, even though he was weak, still joined the conversation. His voice was hoarse, but he tried to sound sincere. "Mrs. Smith, I completely agree with Emily. I have experience helping many elderly clients restructure their assets. If you sell your house now, it would be the perfect moment. Property prices along the Laguna Beach coast are at a historic high. I can handle all the procedures, the valuation, the negotiations. You would not need to worry about anything." I sat quietly and looked at both of them. In that moment, I could see everything clearly. They were not concerned about my safety. They were concerned about money, about this house, about the money I could bring to Nathan's shell company. I took a slow breath, then I smiled. It was a gentle smile, almost a smile of agreement. "I have been thinking about it a lot. Perhaps you are right. This house really is large, and I am not young anymore. I agree to consider selling it, but I want everything done properly. I need to meet with my lawyer, my cousin Victor, to review the contract carefully. And I also want to speak with my financial advisor. I do not want to rush." Emily's eyes lit up. She grabbed my hand. "That is wonderful, Mom. I knew you would understand." Nathan nodded weakly, but his smile revealed clear satisfaction. "You are making a wise decision. I will prepare the documents for the meeting with your lawyer." They did not realize that at that very moment I had already turned the game around. That night, after they went upstairs early because Nathan was still exhausted, I called Victor Lang. Victor is a distant cousin of mine. He is a retired lawyer, but he still maintains strong connections with several prosecutor offices. Victor listened carefully as I told him everything, from Emily and Nathan's sudden appearance, to their request that I sell the house, to the information I had discovered about Nathan's company. His voice became serious over the phone. "Lauren, do not sign any documents yet. You may be dealing with a professional scammer. I have seen cases like this before. They target elderly people who live alone and own valuable property. You did the right thing by collecting evidence. Now listen carefully. I will send you a small recording device. It is professional equipment, about the size of a lighter. It can clearly record conversations within 20 feet. Wear it whenever you speak with Nathan. At the same time, I strongly recommend that you file a complaint with the California Attorney General's office. Their Elder Protection Unit handles financial fraud against seniors. They deal with cases exactly like this." I received Victor's package only 2 days later. Inside was a small recording device, compact, easy to hide in a jacket pocket. I also filed an online complaint myself on the official website of the California Attorney General's office. I described Nathan's behavior in detail. I attached photos of the documents he had left behind. I included the newspaper article about his failed project, and I added a short phone statement from Karen Mitchell. When I pressed the submit button, my heart beat faster. That was not just a complaint, it was a declaration. I was no longer a potential victim. I was someone actively protecting my own rights, just like any American citizen has the right to do. When I closed my laptop, I heard soft footsteps upstairs. Emily came down to the kitchen to get some water. She noticed me sitting in the dark with my computer. "Mom, you are still awake?" she asked quietly. I smiled calmly. "I am just reading a few documents about selling the house. I want to make sure everything is clear before meeting Victor." Emily nodded. But in her eyes, I noticed a brief shadow of suspicion. It was the first time I had seen it so clearly. She was not ready to face the truth yet, but the seed of doubt had already begun to grow. I looked out the window and saw the moonlight reflecting across the ocean. The waves continued to rise and fall, but now they sounded different, almost as if they were cheering for me. I was no longer a passive woman waiting for things to happen. I had begun setting a trap, and this time the one who would fall into it would not be me. A few days after that special breakfast, Nathan slowly recovered. But the atmosphere inside my house had completely changed. He no longer sat at the kitchen counter like the master of the house. Instead, there were cautious glances and subtle, probing questions. Emily had grown quieter. From time to time, her eyes lingered on me longer than usual. It was as if she was trying to piece together scattered fragments, yet she was still afraid to believe the full picture. I knew the decisive moment was approaching, and I was ready. On the evening of August 25th, 2025, Nathan called me, not from the living room, but from an unfamiliar phone number. His voice tried to remain calm, but I could clearly hear the urgency beneath it. "Mrs. Smith, I am sorry to disturb you. I left a few personal items in your living room, an external hard drive and some work documents. I need to come back and pick them up. I promise I will not stay long. Would tonight be possible?" I remained silent for a moment, letting him feel my hesitation. Then I answered, my voice trembling just enough to sound real. "Nathan, I am not sure. I am very frightened. After what happened the other day, I do not want to see anyone. But if you only need to pick up your things, then it is fine. I will leave the door unlocked. Come a little later tonight." After Emily has gone to sleep, he let out a breath of relief. "Thank you. I will come after midnight." Quietly. I do not want Emily to worry anymore. I ended the call. My heart was beating hard. I was already wearing the FBI microphone, the tiny device Victor had sent me hidden inside the pocket of my coat. I had also informed Agent Kim. He is coming back. I will let him in. They confirmed that a tactical team had already positioned themselves around the house, ready to act. But I knew this moment was not only about making an arrest. It was the moment when the truth had to be revealed in front of my own daughter. At exactly 2:47 in the morning on August 26th, I heard the faint sound of a key turning in the front door, the spare key Emily had once given him. Nathan stepped inside. His tall shadow moved across the living room under the pale moonlight shining through the large windows. He no longer looked like the elegant man I had first met. Now he looked like a predator, returning to familiar territory, confident that everything was still under his control. I stood at the top of the staircase, wearing my night robe, pretending to tremble. "Nathan, you are here. I left your things in the living room. Please take them quickly and go. I am very tired." He walked closer. The charming smile was gone, replaced by a cold expression. "Mrs. Smith, I know you are frightened, but I only need the hard drive. Everything will be fine." He walked directly to the corner of the living room where a decorative plant stood beside the window, exactly where he had hidden the hard drive the first time he came. I remained still. My hand gripped the microphone inside my coat pocket. Emily, I knew, was standing on the staircase upstairs. She was not asleep, and I had intentionally left her bedroom door slightly open. Nathan bent down to retrieve the hard drive. Then suddenly he stopped. He turned sharply toward me. His eyes were cold and sharp. "You are not really afraid, are you?" I stepped back, pretending to panic. What are you talking about?" He moved closer. His right hand slipped inside his jacket. Then he pulled out a handgun. The metal glinted under the moonlight. "You have been playing this game from the beginning. Researching my background. Contacting Karen. Filing a complaint with the Attorney General. You are the key witness, the only person with detailed and credible evidence. If you disappear, the entire case collapses." The other victims are just elderly women with fading memories. No one believes them. But you are different. My heart was pounding, but I forced my voice to remain steady. Nathan, you do not need to do this. I only wanted to protect my home. He laughed coldly and raised the gun. You think I came back just for the hard drive? That drive is worthless. The real data is stored on an offshore server the FBI will never reach. I came back for you. Removing the key witness is the best way for me to continue my work. I have done this many times before. From the upstairs staircase, a small sound echoed. Emily stepped out, holding the railing. Her face was pale. She had heard everything. Her voice broke. Nathan, what are you saying? Are you planning to kill my mother? Nathan turned toward her. The gun lowered slightly. Emily, do not interfere. This is business. She knows too much. I am doing this to protect us. So we can have money. So we can have a future. Emily shook her head. Tears streamed down her face. Protect us. You lied to me. You married me to get close to my mother. Everything was fake. Your company, your promises, your love. All of it was fake. She collapsed onto the stairs, covering her mouth as she cried. Nathan tried to approach her. Emily, listen to me. Let me explain, but I interrupted him, my voice cold and firm. There is nothing left to explain. You have already said enough, Nathan. And now everything is over? Nathan raised the gun again. His eyes were wild. You think you have won, I will. But before he could finish the sentence, the lights in the house suddenly went out. A soft clicking sound came from the basement. The electromagnetic pulse device Victor had helped me install had activated. The handgun in Nathan's hand was instantly disabled. Its electronic mechanism had failed. The trigger could no longer fire. In the darkness, rapid footsteps echoed. FBI agents stormed in through the back door and the front door at the same time. Flashlights swept across the room. A loud command echoed. Federal agents, drop the weapon. Hands up. The lights came back on. Nathan lay face down on the floor. His hands were cuffed behind his back. The gun had been taken away. Agent Kim stepped forward and nodded at me. Mrs. Smith, you did very well. I looked at Emily. She was still sitting on the staircase, tears streaming down her face, watching her husband being led away. She whispered softly, Mom, I am sorry. I did not know. I did not know he was that kind of man. I walked toward her and knelt beside my daughter. I wrapped my arms around her. For the first time in many years, I felt that she was no longer the self-centered woman she had become. She was simply a lost child finally facing a painful truth. I whispered softly, I know, my dear. But now you have seen the truth, and we will get through this together. When the FBI car drove Nathan away, I stood on the deck and watched the red and blue lights disappear into the night. The waves continued to roll against the shore, but now they sounded like a quiet confirmation. I was no longer a victim. I had fought back, and I had won, not with violence, but with intelligence, resilience, and faith in myself. Something every American woman has the right to possess. And my story is not finished. It has only just begun. In the moment when Nathan raised the gun, the metal flashed under the moonlight, shining through the large window. I felt time slow down. My heart was beating hard. But it was not fear. It was absolute clarity. This was the moment when everything had to end. I had been waiting for this moment ever since I decided I would not allow him to control my life any longer. Emily stood on the staircase. Her hands gripped the railing tightly. Tears ran down her cheeks. Her voice broke as she cried out, Nathan, what are you doing? Are you going to kill my mother? Nathan turned sharply toward her. The gun was still aimed at me. His voice was cold, but there was a trace of panic inside it. Emily, do not interfere. This is business. She is the key witness. If she disappears, the entire case collapses. I am doing this to protect us, so we can have a future. Emily shook her head violently. Tears fell without stopping. Protect us. You lied to me. You married me just to get close to my mother. Everything was fake. Your words of love, your plans for the future, your company. All of it was a lie. You only wanted money. You wanted my mother's house. She collapsed onto the stairs. Her hands covered her mouth as she sobbed like a child who had been betrayed. I looked at my daughter, and a sharp pain passed through my heart, not only because of what Nathan had done, but because Emily had allowed herself to be used by him. She had believed his sweet words so completely that she had almost forgotten her own mother. Nathan gave a cold laugh and turned back toward me. "You think you have won, I will," but before he could finish the sentence, I slipped my hand into the pocket of my coat and pressed the small button on the device. Victor had helped me hide in the basement a week earlier. A very soft click echoed from below the house. Then every light in the house went out at the same time. Darkness covered everything. Only faint moonlight entered through the glass windows. At that exact moment, an invisible electromagnetic pulse spread through the house. It was a compact EMP device Victor had obtained through a private security source. It was designed specifically to disable electronic devices within a radius of 15 meters. The handgun in Nathan's hand, a modern model with an electronic safety mechanism, suddenly stopped working. He pulled the trigger again and again, but only useless clicking sounds answered him. "What the hell is this?" Nathan shouted. His voice cracked with panic. In the darkness, he rushed toward the back door, the escape route he had already planned. But before he could touch the door handle, a powerful beam of light struck his face. Voices shouted at the same time. "Federal agents, drop the weapon. Hands where we can see them." The back door burst open. FBI agents rushed in from both sides through the front door and the back door. Agent Martinez lunged forward and slammed Nathan to the wooden floor in a single motion. The gun was torn from his hand. Handcuffs locked tightly around his wrists. The lights came back on across the entire house. Nathan lay face down on the floor, his cheek pressed against the wood. He was breathing hard. All his charm and confidence had vanished. Agent Kim stepped toward me. His voice was calm but full of respect. "Mrs. Smith, you did very well. We recorded everything. He is not getting away." I turned toward Emily. She was still sitting on the staircase, her hands covering her face as she cried uncontrollably. As the agents led Nathan outside, he tried to turn back and look at her one last time. "Emily, my love, listen to me. Let me explain." But Emily only shook her head. Her voice was shattered. "Do not call me that anymore. You do not love me. You never loved me. You only used me to get my mother's house." She looked up at me, her face wet with tears. "Mom, I am sorry. I was so foolish. I let him use me. I let him use you. I do not deserve your forgiveness." I walked up the stairs and knelt beside my daughter. I held her tightly in my arms. For the first time in many years, I felt that Emily was no longer the self-centered woman she had become. She was simply a lost child facing the most painful truth of her life. I whispered softly in her ear. "I know, my dear. I know you did not mean for this to happen. But now you have seen the truth, and we will get through this together. I am here, and I will never abandon you." When the FBI vehicle drove Nathan away, the red and blue light slowly disappeared into the night of Laguna Beach. Emily and I stood together on the deck. I held her in my arms. The waves continued to break along the shore, but now they sounded like a quiet promise. We had survived, not through violence, not through hatred, but through truth, through courage, and through the belief that no one has the right to take away another person's freedom or dignity. Nathan had tried to escape through the back door, but he did not know that I had already prepared everything. The agent stopped him right at the threshold, and within seconds everything was over. He was no longer the predator. He was the one being captured, and the full truth had finally been brought into the light. For me, it was not simply an arrest. It was the moment I took my life back. And for Emily, it was the moment she began to learn how to stand up again after the ruins of a betrayed trust. Our story is not finished, but from that night on, we began a new chapter. A chapter of truth, a chapter of strength, and a chapter where the bond between mother and daughter was rebuilt in the fire that tests pure gold. After Nathan was handcuffed and taken to the FBI vehicle, the night in Laguna Beach seemed quieter than ever. The red and blue lights slowly faded into the distance. The sound of the siren blended with the steady rhythm of the waves from the Pacific Ocean. I stood on the deck, still holding Emily tightly in my arms. My daughter was crying uncontrollably against my shoulder. Her tears soaked into my shirt. She did not say much. She only repeated the same words again and again. "Mom, I am sorry. I did not know. I did not know he was that kind of man." I gently stroked her hair and whispered to her, "I know, my dear. I know you did not mean for this to happen. But now you have seen the truth. And we will get through this. Together." The days that followed were filled with long phone calls, meetings, and painful truths that slowly came into the light. Nathan was charged in federal court almost immediately, not only for conspiracy to commit murder in order to silence a witness, but also for multiple counts of financial fraud, elder exploitation, and operating a criminal network. Later, Agent Kim informed me that Nathan had agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He revealed the entire network. It was an organized operation that specifically targeted older women who owned valuable property. At least 30 victims had already been identified in 12 different states. They used detailed psychological profiles, false romantic relationships, and even marriage to gain access to their victims. When I heard this, I sat in silence. I was not the only victim. I was simply the only one who had realized the truth in time and fought back. Emily decided to file for divorce within that same month. She did not want to spend another single day connected to the man who had abused her love and trust. She moved back to stay with me temporarily, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she needed time to heal. During those first evenings, we often sat together on the deck watching the sunset slowly fall over the ocean. She cried many times. Again and again she apologized to me. "Mom, I was selfish. I believed that as long as someone made me feel important, everything would be fine. I allowed him to use me. And through me, he used you. I am sorry for treating you like a servant. I am sorry for not listening to you." I held her close and told her gently, "I forgive you. But the most important thing is that you are learning how to stand up again. And I am proud of you for that." The FBI did not allow me much time to rest. 1 week after the arrest, Agent Kim came to visit me at my house. She sat with me on the deck, looking out over the ocean, and then she spoke. "Mrs. Smith, your case is one of the rare situations where the victim not only survived, but also turned the situation around. We are building a new task force that focuses on romance scams and family-based fraud targeting older adults. We need someone like you, someone with real experience, strong analytical thinking, and courage. Would you be willing to work as a consultant for us? You would help train agents, review case files, and sometimes even participate in operations to warn other potential victims." I stayed silent for a moment and looked out toward the Pacific Ocean. I thought about the years I had spent teaching. I thought about the students I had once guided and encouraged. I had always hoped to help people discover their own strength. Now, at 68 years old, I had the chance to do something similar again. Not in a classroom, but in real life. I nodded. Yes, I will do it. If I can help prevent another woman from going through what I experienced, then I am willing. From that moment on, my life began to change. I started working with the task force. Emily joined as well. Karen Mitchell, Nathan's former wife, also became involved. Over time, she became a friend. Together with other survivors, we participated in training programs. We reviewed case files. Sometimes we even acted as relatives or advisors to help warn potential victims. Each successful intervention felt like a small victory. Another home saved, another older woman reclaiming control of her life. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I was sitting on the deck of my Laguna Beach home, watching the deep red sunset slowly sink into the ocean. My phone vibrated. A message from Emily appeared. "Mom, I just finished my first training session with the task force. Are you ready for the next case?" I smiled and typed my reply. "Always ready, my dear." I set the phone down and took a deep breath of the salty ocean air. The waves continued their steady rhythm, but now they sounded like a reminder. I was no longer a victim. I had become a protector, not only for myself, but for dozens, perhaps hundreds of women out there. I had turned pain into strength. I had turned betrayal into motivation. And I had turned this house, the very place that had once been threatened, into the starting point of a much larger fight. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever encountered a scammer disguised as a friend, a family member, or even a neighbor, please share your experience in the comments. Your voice might help protect another older person from falling into a similar trap. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you will not miss the next true stories. Because in this country, we do not live only for ourselves. We live to protect one another. And sometimes true strength does not come from youth or wealth. Sometimes it comes from the courage of a woman who decides to stand up no matter her age. Thank you. See you next time.